Hello, Brian, and welcome to the Wakeful podcast, VP-podden.
Thank you very much.
It's very nice for you to be up this late and join the podcast.
Yeah,
It's the time
I know it's
difference.
early. It's early for you, so
Yeah,
late for me. So right, yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
it's yeah, it's nice that we can get this together, anyways. Yeah.
Yes,
For our few American listeners, I presume a lot of them knows who you are. But
yes. We pulled for a long time, so there's probably not a lot of people here in the U.S. that's still actively pulling as long as my wife and I have. We started in 1998. What
wow,
are we at? 27 years in right now, so it's been a long time.
yeah, that's a really long time. That's pretty
Yes.
much when the sport came to Sweden. I know officially the first club started in 2002. So I know that late 90s they started to dabbing a little bit with the sport over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you get to know about the sport and why did you start from the beginning?
Well, my wife and I started raising American Bulldogs in 1995. We started going to confirmation shows, and so we were just showing dogs. And they had a weight pull at one, and we were asked to try it with one of our big dogs. His name was Oscar. And as soon as I did, that was it for confirmation for me. I just got into the working aspect of the dog was just way more fun for me. And so I think we were in Illinois when that pull happened, and the next, as soon as we got home, I got a friend to build me a wheeled cart because we started with wheels and never looked back since. So
Oh, nice, nice. I recognize that transition, so to speak. Yeah, I was in the confirmation side as well, and then
uh-huh.
yeah, and then when I ran into a weight pulling, yeah, I lost the words, but yeah, I ran into the sport, and then ever since, yeah,
Yeah,
I just can't stop. I don't have a dog right now, but I can't stop be involved in the sport anyway. So it's
sure. Yeah, it's been quite the ride, and has really pretty much consumed our life. For whatever 27 years here.
yeah,
Um, because you always, if you want to be good at this sport, you always got to have another dog up.
yeah,
Because they don't last forever. So every couple of years you got to have something in the line coming behind the one that you're pulling currently. So,
yeah,
and that's
yeah. That's
also how
great.
you go from owning two or three dogs, owning 15 or 16. If
Yeah,
because when you're done pulling, we don't I don't get rid of my dogs. We keep all of our dogs, so you just end up with a lot of dogs.
yeah. So you breed dogs as well?
Yes, we breed American Bulldogs. Like I said, we got our first American Bulldog in 1995, and we've kind of bred them, through the weight pull lines. Started off with MGK dogs, Marklanders, and then so we just bred our best weight pull female to our best weight pull male for all these years, and created our own kind of weight pull line. Just recently, in the last 4 years, probably we kind of transitioned to the American Pit Bull Terrier. As we're getting older, it's getting harder to for my wife especially to handle the 120-pound bulldog. So
Yeah,
we found, and it's kind of given us a little more, I don't know if it's motivation or it's just something different. So the challenge is different. It's actually a little bit easier. They're a little bit easier dog to train than, say, the American Bulldogs are.
so what's the main difference besides that they are easier to train in your idea when it comes to weight pulling
Well, I
between the
think
breeds?
they just take to it way quicker for one. And bulldogs are so strong-headed. They can be a little stubborn sometimes, and you might have to wait, a little bit longer to start training, just because they're growing so much so quick, and it just seems like the little pitch, you can really put a lot more pressure on them at a younger age. And that's probably the biggest difference. And there's a lot of differences between training the two breeds. And I've, just because you've pulled 27 years or we have, you still learn all the time. It's transitioning from one breed to the other, and they're just different. So you do train both of them differently.
Yeah. So, how did you train your American Bulldogs? I
Well,
presume you started a little bit later with them.
yeah, well, I still started at 4 months old. I guess it's kind of the same at the eight. We started little bitty pit bulls, at 3 months, and I started my American Bulldogs at 4 months. So they're still young, but and I've always been one to. I'm a big believer in track work, and a lot of people, are probably not training like how my wife and I did with the American Bulldogs. Less drag and more track. We just kind of do drag at the start to get them to learn how to pull something. And then I'd go, like at 5.5, 6 months, we'd go straight to the cart, and I probably wouldn't drag again until the dog was over a year old, until I had him perfect on the track. But the difference between an American Bulldog and some of the pit bulls is the ABs are just naturally freaky strong dogs. So you
Yeah.
don't have to go drag them and make them strong. They're just already strong. So if you've got a good minded, well trained dog on the track, then that's all we needed. And then as soon as we started pulling the pitch, a few years ago, I tried to train them the same way and realized that, man, you got to do a lot. If you want to be competitive, you have to do a lot of conditioning work with drag and treadmill and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's that big a difference between the natural state of strength, pretty much.
Natural strength is, to me, it's one of the biggest things in this sport that some people probably don't even realize, and it's nothing that you can train, because the pits have it too. The small pits still have, there's a difference. You can have two equally well trained dogs bred the same way, and one of them is just naturally stronger than the other one.
Yeah.
Um, but the American Bulldogs, like I said, you didn't have to go drag weight all the time. They were just big, bully, strong dogs.
Yeah. Did you see during the years that when you selected for you bred the best female weight pulling dog to the best male
Mhm.
weight pulling dog, did you see the natural strength go up or
Yeah, I would say the tighter our line got over the years, and of course my own experience, so, and I try to tell people this when you first start in this game, the first dog you ever train is probably going to be the worst dog you ever had, because you actually don't know what you're doing. The dog doesn't know what it's doing. So you make so many mistakes during that time. So, it just got to the point to where when I was breeding my best males, I just knew it didn't matter which puppy I was going to keep. I already knew they were all going to be good, or technically they could all be good, if you trained it right. It's just from, just training the best male and best female I had. Those natural traits just came out.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I have thought about that uh, before that the natural strength is that's different, but just as it is with us humans, it's
Yeah.
some are just strong when they are
Yeah.
born. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah. Two people can be 200 pounds, the same size whatsoever, but somebody else can just, for some reason, is just naturally stronger.
yeah.
And it's no different in the dogs. It is no different in the dogs whatsoever.
No. So yeah, and that's why it's nice. I presume to have been bred them yourself, so you can make sure that
Yeah.
you get a natural strong dog all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And we had the pleasure of working with several different lines that we mixed together, um, to create our dogs. And man, when you get a good one, you just kind of work. It's just hard to go away from that. Now we did have a couple different sides of our lines of our bulldogs, and my wife pulled one side, kinda, and then I pulled the other side because. I just enjoyed that side a little bit more. They're a little bit less bully type dog, a little more athletic, and they just, for me, they just work better.
Yeah. So and the size of your dogs was typically around 120 pounds, you said?
Yeah, our males, probably the two best males I ever had. One was just 82 pounds. His name was Dupree, and then he had a son. His name was Bodie, and Bodie was about 112. And they were our two best males, through that 20 plus year. Well, I'm still pulling bulldogs now, but
Yeah.
just not as many as what we used to. But yeah, anywhere from 80 to 120 pounds for
Yeah.
males, and females are, 60 to 85, 90.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a couple of American Bulldogs on the weight pulling scene here in Sweden before the pandemic, pretty much. But afterwards, they have not disappeared. It's been one or two, but otherwise they are not that common anymore, unfortunately. Uh,
Yeah. I think it was 2015, my wife and I actually went to a show. Anthony LaCour had an American Bulldog show. I don't know if you know who that is. It was just outside of Paris, France. So we went out there and judged the conformation, and I did like a weight pull seminar out there. And then we did a weight pull. I don't know, it was probably UPF in 2015. We had like 10, 15 dogs that done it then.
yeah.
But yeah, the American Bulldogs were different. Most of them were standard dogs and not the classic Johnson type that my wife and I, raised here in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the American Bulldog a big breed now in the US, or is it declining?
Well,
Or
like I say, we used to do confirmation up until the early 2000s, and then when we really got into this weight pool, I kind of stayed away from that scene, stayed off the message boards, didn't really get into all that stuff because I didn't breed for to have a big breeding program. We bred. The only time we bred is when we wanted a puppy, for weight pulling. So that's what we typically did, and then we did sell quite a few dogs that people wanted for weight pull. So that's kind of what our main focus was. And it's not the main focus of the American people weight pulling with American Bulldogs. It's not a big deal.
no.
There's probably only a couple of people here in the U.S. that did it for as long as Melinda and I did, and it's just pretty crazy.
It feels like it's a breed that really well suited for it.
It is well suited for it, yes. And there's still some people that pull them. There's just not very many anymore.
No. Oh,
But
that's
especially since my Melinda and I have kind of quit pulling them. We're only pulling one right now, and
yeah.
then we have a young one that's just 10 months old that he's going to be my last AB that I train. Because like I said, we're kind of into these small dogs and having a good time with those.
Yeah. Yeah, it must be a big difference just handling a smaller dog overall.
It is. It's quite a bit different, and I like the challenge of, I guess, being able to condition the dog, because I never really had to do that. I could be sitting here right where I am right now on the couch with my bulldogs, and everybody else was out training and conditioning their dogs. And I'm like, my dog's ready to go. We're just sitting here on the couch watching TV.
Yeah.
So it's a lot different now. Even up to last year, I had to change some of my training. You just did a podcast with Emmanuel, so and he's probably pulled these dogs a little bit longer than I have, the small pits. So and he's a hell of a trainer. So if you want to beat that guy, you're gonna have to go work your dog.
Yeah.
So I did actually travel to a weight pull in Utah last year, and Emmanuel was there, and he beat my dog. And when I got home in August, it was like 3 months before nationals, and it was game on. I knew at that point I couldn't just do track time and rest. I had to incorporate the conditioning aspect of the game. And we bought our first, slap mill then in August, or yeah, in August, and started, adding that to our training. So obviously, I didn't do that with my bulldogs. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Interesting. And so with the Bulldogs, you pretty much only did cart work or track work.
No, we still drug weight, but it just
Yeah.
wasn't like as much as say everybody else was doing. So if I was working my dogs 3 days a week, I'd have them on the track 2 days and then go drag the other day. We always thought the reason people didn't want to do track work is because it's a lot of work. You can go
Yeah.
drag 2 or 3 dogs and be done in, 30, 40 minutes. But if you want to go do track work, how we do track work, which is just like a weight pull, yeah, 3 dogs, you could be out there for an hour and a half. You're lifting all the weight, and it's just a lot more work. So
Yeah.
it is easier to go train and just drag compared to doing all the track work.
Yeah. 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 It consumes a lot less time to do the drag work for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, and when you and now you do a lot more drag work
I
with
do
the pit
a
bulls. Yeah.
correct. We do a lot of, especially after they're already completely trained. And I'm saying completely trained, like, I'm going to do a lot of track. So especially when they're not a year old yet. And typically, I feel like I have a dog completely trained at like 7 months old.
Yeah.
So like 3 months of track, or and from like 5 to 7 months, 5, 6, 7 months. In that amount of time, with the amount of drag work we do and track work together, then they're pretty much completely trained at 7 months. Then they're just lacking the experience of going to the shows and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's they take to it pretty darn quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I can assume it's. Have you ever had a dog that wouldn't do it? That just.
Oh yeah, I can't lie about that. If somebody tells you they pulled for 27 years and never had a
Yeah.
dog not do it, now I could say, I mean, yeah, I've never had one that wouldn't do it. I've just had a few that they just didn't make my cut.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've seen it at an early age, and I tell them when it's like, man, this pup's not going to work. I can just look at form or just how they're acting, dragging weight or something. It's like, no, this ain't going to work. So
No.
um,
Yeah, of course, as well as the natural strength. Some don't have the natural. Uh,
they just don't have that next gear they got to have.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I
So
got to say, on the pit bull side, we're working with the best blood that you can get in the United States. Bloodlines that have pulled since the 80s. It's the best bloodlines you can get. So it's not like I'm trying to recreate something. I'm just working with the best blood there is.
yeah, and do you breed the pits as well, or is it so
We've
recent?
had we've only done one breeding so far. Um, we're trying to get away from the breeding aspect of this, but I've studded my dogs out a couple times, and got puppies back like that, which is way easier,
Yeah,
than having to raise a litter. And Emmanuel and I just, we just done a breeding this spring, and we both have puppies out of that, with my really good male and his good female, and those pups are just 3.5 months old right now. But man, they're looking pretty promising just with the few drags that we've done.
yeah. I can imagine if the lines have been selected for weight pulling since the 80s.
Yeah,
They,
I
they
mean
got a lot of.
yes, that's how strong that line is, and it's just crazy how good it is,
Yeah,
and how quickly they take to weight pull.
yeah. So when you start them at the track, yeah, I realize it's very low weight on them. But how much do you train them in the beginning? You started at 3 or 4 months, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like I say, my pup that I have, with Emmanuel, he's 3.5 months old, and we started about a week ago. With dragging. So we've drug like 3 times now, and I'll probably drag till I don't know, close to 5 months old, and then we'll start doing track work then. Now the amazing thing is, it's not like you're going to the track and just pulling an empty cart. They're pretty advanced by that stage with dragging, and they can usually pull quite a bit of weight. And every now and then, when we post videos on some of the message boards, we catch a little flack from some people because they think we're pushing our puppies too hard. But, I don't really look at the weight that we're pulling. I always go by form. So if you're pulling a pup on the track and they have perfect form down the track, I add weight. That's how I do it.
yeah,
Um, once they break form and don't look very good coming down the track, you're like, okay, that's, you can't add no more weight. That's where you got to stop. So
Yeah, and if they don't have good form when you start to drag with them, do you do anything special to make
um,
to teach them to get good form? Because I think this is one of the hardest stuff.
it's one of
Um,
the, I guess I kind of look at it as like form is form. It is what it is. There's not a lot that you can, me personally, I don't think there's a lot that you can do. It's like the luck of the draw, or when you're selecting your puppy, there's certain things you can look for in like front shoulder set. I think that's one of the biggest things. But other than that, man, it's just kind of you get started and it's just the luck of the draw, or typically most puppies, especially these American Pit Bull Terriers, with the line that we're working with, they already got good form. You may find a few that are, a little stiff-legged in the front, but not a whole lot. Most of them are really pretty good.
yeah. So you first of all you look at the front, so they have a good set of shoulders
Good
and
shoulder set, and actually some angulation in the front end, and so they're not straight peg leg.
yeah.
Because you don't want to have a dog pulling, with their front legs that don't have any bend to them. You got to have a little bend in those legs, or they're going to end up pulling super high, and maybe just being a rear end puller and not being pulling with all four legs, which is very important too.
Yeah. Yeah, the dog that I competed most with, he was a rear end two wheel drive dog.
Two
It
wheel
was
drive,
yeah,
yeah,
strong as
yeah,
hell, but yeah, with
yeah.
if he could use the front legs, it would be another level. I'm sure.
Definitely,
Yeah,
yes. It's really, and I've seen some good dogs that just pulled with the rear end and not a whole lot in the front. But man, when you get that 4-wheel drive, you just can't beat it.
no, no, yeah, it says itself. It's
Yeah,
way easier to get traction as well. Um,
yeah. Traction, and typically if they're using all four legs really well, the dog's pulling a lot lower.
yeah,
The dog that just use their rear end, a lot of times they're really high in the front, and it just makes it that much harder.
yeah. Do you do you put this together with dogs that jump as well, that they don't use all the four legs, or is that something else, you think?
What was that? I didn't quite.
Well, when the dogs that jump a lot in the start, um,
Oh,
yeah, is that also, do you think, something to do with the two-wheel drive?
Um, I don't know. I guess because I don't deal with that. A dog jumping.
Yeah,
I train all my dogs to fire out, but that kind of starts as a puppy with drag weighting,
yeah,
um, teaching them how to do that. So, but I don't know if I had a dog that jumped into the start, I'd probably freak out a little bit. That'd be on me. It wouldn't be the dog's fault. That would be my personal training. Or if you see somebody that's doing that, it's just their lack of knowledge on how to train the dog correctly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A little bit too much too soon, probably. Yeah,
Could be a little bit too much too soon. No leash. I'm a firm believer in using a leash and having a leash on your dog when you're first training. It's your only tool really that you got, especially when you're on the track, other than, if they don't come, you got to grab them with your hand. And then, but, just having a leash on just has, it's just a little bit of control that you need. And that's all you really need.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then just not
yeah,
pushing too quick, but that, it can take years actually to learn. Um, I've gone through I've trained a lot of dogs, a lot of our own dogs. We've probably had, gosh, I don't know, 30 plus weight pull dogs, maybe more. I'd have to sit and count them up. I don't know, and that's not counting, dogs that we've helped other people train, and so trained a lot of dogs.
yeah. And yeah, the leash is it's it's a good guidance, especially in the beginning for them. And
It is, yes, it
yeah,
is. It's very important. And I've had some people when they call me and ask for advice, I was like, well, you got to use a leash. And they're like, well, I don't believe in using a leash, and I typically just say, well, then you need to find somebody else because that's how
yeah,
I train. I train with a leash and I'm a big believer in it. And You don't even have to be using it. It can just have real light on the dog and no pressure. But
Yeah,
if you need it there, you can just tap the dog a little bit to get what you're after.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really good suggestion for everybody that starts, and or even when you come a bit in your training, to use the leash so you can control
Yep.
where
Use the
everything
leash.
goes. Yeah,
You control everything with that leash, and it's very important. It's the why I tell most people it's the number one thing that you need to learn how to use. If you've never really trained a dog, you need to use a leash.
yeah.
So
And when you the drag weight is here in Sweden, that's the main part of training. And I know we have a shortage of tracks here overall,
sure, yeah.
so there's not a lot of people that has access to the track. But when you start to do the drag weighting, do you how far do you go, and how heavy do you go? Maybe
Oh,
with a,
geez.
yeah, it's more maybe with a puppy. It's always hard with the weight, but the length of the drag weight is
Yes. So I just start with like a little 3 foot light chain and one window weight that weighs like 4 pounds. So, we're dragging. I don't know if pounds and everything's different there. So maybe you
yeah
don't cover it. Yeah. So it's really light. It's not very heavy at all. And we live out in the country. So I really don't know how far we go. We total like 100 yards, and we drag in the gravel actually, so it makes a little bit more noise with the puppies. So we'll drag on our gravel road probably the first 4 or 5 times, and then we'll transition over to grass after that. But we just do the driveway, just to so it's got that little clangy sound behind them, and they kind of can concentrate on us and forget about what's behind them. So, but typically I couldn't. So I don't have a set distance I go. It could just be that's far enough tonight, and turn around
yeah.
and go back to the house. So yeah.
But you use chains, not
Yes, we use
yeah,
chains. So it's like I say, the chain that we're pulling the puppies with, it's probably like a chain that you would tie a dog up with, or people that chain dogs, it's just a real light, light duty chain. And but when we get to, our serious drag weight dogs, they're using a thicker log chain. And the two that I use, they're 20 foot long, so already pretty heavy with nothing on them. And then, we add window weights accordingly to how much
yeah,
to the typical dog that you're using. And it
yeah,
all changes with the time of the year, when the grass is greener, everything drags harder. Get to the fall, it starts dying out, and you got to add more weight because it drags easier and stuff like that. So, yeah,
yeah.
you're always adjusting with temperature, wetness, whatever.
Yeah. And then so you don't really like put down how heavy the chains are, or
I
for you
don't know. No,
record it. It's the
I
word.
don't
Yeah.
record. I know a lot of people like to record stuff. I don't record anything, so I
No.
guess mine is in my head.
Yeah.
And I go just like what I said earlier about doing track work. It's all by form, and
Yeah.
drag weights the same way too. So I'm looking for the same thing in drag that I do out in the field, or where we drag at, as I do like on a track. So I want to have that nice, good working pace. Nothing that, the dog's pulling at a snail's pace. I want them to go a little bit quicker than that.
Yeah.
And we drag, it's about 800 yards probably is all we do um, for our drag session. And say, like my dog Max, he's 47 pounds, and, he's dragging like right at 100 pounds. And when you get done with that, they're pretty tired. So
Yeah.
when we're training for like nationals, so we'll go out and drag that. It takes like 15 minutes. We get back to our house and go into our garage and give him like a 10-minute break. And then Max does we have a carpet mill, so he'll be on the carpet mill for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then that's his training. So, and then next day, nothing.
Yeah.
Like right now, there's no, I mean, we're not going to pull till this fall really. So I'm not training any of my weight pull dogs. They're all just resting, which is probably, if you want to talk about mistakes people make, that's one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah.
they train constantly year round. But I'm a person that, man, if I don't have a show that I'm going to go to, and then in the next month or so, I'm not going to train my dogs. There's just no reason to keep them in tip top shape. 12 months out of the year.
No, but and then you do like Emmanuel did, just fetching with the ball and having fun with them instead. For
I know he does a lot of this stuff.
yeah,
I don't,
no,
I don't go. It might be because of, I had two of my American Bulldogs tear ACLs, had nothing to do with weight pull, it's just stupid accidents. I typically never got into throwing a ball, making a dog cut,
no,
especially when you're dealing with a bulldog, that's 110 pounds, and they're not real smart about when they get to that ball, they get it and just turn on a dime. And, I was always scared that I'm going to have all this time in a dog and then they'd get hurt.
yeah,
And then you're out of weight pull dog. But, yeah, so we don't do any sprint work like that or nothing. I guess my cardio is the mill.
yeah. And in my experience is that the people, they need to work consistently. So do you do resting time? It's more meal work, not the work, but they get to get their energy out, so to speak,
Well,
on the meal, or yeah,
I guess my resting time is real resting time. I don't do anything. I mean, they're just like a family pet.
yeah,
A lot of my dogs are in the house. My best weight pull dogs I ever had, they're all house dogs, so they live in the house with us. They're not kennel dogs. And I got a really nice kennel set up, that holds 15 dogs, and they're all American Bulldogs mostly out there. But yeah, so when I mean rest, I mean like off time rest. And we're just getting, we're in the middle of the summer here. So, and I'm not going to pull again until the first week of September. And that's just going to be a pull here at my house just to get ready for our national events this fall, with ADBA being end of September, and then UF Nationals being like 2 weeks after that. So we'll start training, like 1st of August for all of that.
yeah. So pretty much a month of training is what you say, that's all that's needed before the show.
I'm typically like, I don't train the same all year long that I do for nationals. Um, Nationals is a little bit different, to where, I mean, sometimes in the summer or in the springtime, you could be training for a show, and man, I might get home one night and be like, man, I just don't feel like training tonight. So you skip it and you like move it to the next day. But not this August. When that training starts for nationals, it's a little bit different, to where, man, when you're at work, you're like, I cannot wait to get home to train,
Yeah,
because you have to be ready if you want to be good, or if you have good dogs, everybody wants to beat you. So,
yeah,
um, and with these little dogs, it's so competitive. And it's going to be this year, especially at UPF. Some of these small classes are going to be loaded, with 20 plus dogs in them. The 20s, 30s, and 40s is just going to be huge classes.
yeah,
And there's going to be some really good dogs that don't actually place. You could have a great dog that gets fifth place. That's how hard it's going to be. So you better be ready when you show up.
yeah. Of course, and when it's that competitive, it's more fun then as well. But it needs a lot of work before.
It
Yeah,
needs a lot of work. So yeah, you don't want to miss any of those training sessions that you got set up. And I'm typically I don't ever do back to back days. I'm an every other day trainer. So drag, we go drag, like what I said earlier. Drag,
yeah,
come back, do mill for 30 minutes. The next day off. The
yeah,
day after that, repeat. So that's pretty much what we do.
yeah.
And then after we drag, and then I'll still put cart work in there too. So, maybe after every fifth or sixth drag, we'll go max them out on our track, or close to max,
Yeah.
like a one pull shy of what their max would be. Then we'd stop.
Okay. Yeah.
So still a good workout on the track.
Yeah. And have you been training like this from the beginning, or
Yeah, really. But like I said, I've changed a little bit the last 3 years or so with the different breeds.
yeah,
Mostly from the late 90s all the way up to 2022. I trained the same way. So I'd start a puppy dragon and I'd go straight to the cart, and just do mostly cart work. And I still done that, and I'd still do that with my bulldogs. That I pull right now. I don't even drag them. I just just do a little bit of cart work and go to shows. So.
Yeah.
But like I said, these little pits are different, where you have to condition them dogs to be competitive, and so that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. And is there at the shows, are there, I presume that there's a lot more of the smaller dogs, as you said, 20 and 30 pounds, I think you said. But when it comes up to the American Bulldog, yeah, plus 80-pound dogs, is there a lot less dogs at the shows, or how
It's
does it look?
it's it's changed over the years, which is pretty crazy. You can go back to even UPF in like 2015 and 16, and I believe we had mid 90s dogs, that many dogs at the show, like 95, and 60 to 65 of those dogs were 70 and over. They were all big dogs. Now, last year, we might have had I think we had maybe 70 dogs at nationals, and like 12 of those dogs were over 70. So
Whoa.
everyone's kind of transitioned to the little dogs, including my wife and I. When we went from pulling 6 American bulldogs every year to I'm pulling one now, and we're pulling 5 little dogs.
Yeah.
So and then like Emmanuel's got into it heavy here the last 5 years. And then we've got a few new friends that just kind of popped into the sport, and everybody's pulling little dogs.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this year's UPF, heck, I don't know. We might have 15 dogs just in the 20-pound range that are going to be really, really good. And
Yeah.
the 30s and 40s, they'll be the two biggest classes. And I think each one of them is going to have over 20 dogs in each class, and it's going to be really tough competition.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we can see the same over here. We always had more dogs in the lightweight category, so to speak,
Yeah.
but now the
Yeah.
later, pretty much after the pandemic, it's the big dogs has disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of dogs in, yeah, I think in pounds it will be the 30s and the 40s over here as well. That's the big
Uh-huh.
classes. Yeah.
It's the big classes here too. Same way with ADBA,
Yeah.
it's going to be the same way. And a lot of the dogs with that's going to be at ADBA will be at UPF or APA. They could be at both. So yeah, it's going to be something. And then next year is probably
Nice.
going
Yeah.
that 2026 will probably be a little bit harder than this year, because there's so many new puppies that are going to be out next year, and there was a couple,
Oh,
like
yeah.
3 or 4 really big breedings this year that was done with the top of the line dogs. Jonathan Trejo did a heck of a breeding that we actually got a puppy from too. But there's going to be a lot of good pups that come out next year. So that's why I
Yeah.
say you got to stay on top of your game, and you can't ever just relax. Somebody's always trying to
No.
beat. Yeah.
Yeah, always. It's the same everywhere.
Yes, it's the same everywhere. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And you talked a little bit about the different organizations. And when I spoke with Emmanuel, we talked about the ADBA and then UPF and IWPF. What is it
IWPA.
called? Yeah. Yeah,
IWPA. Yeah.
IWPA. Yeah. And then we
Yeah.
have APA.
APA.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, so but it feels like ADBA is the big one when it comes to especially the pit bulls then,
Well,
and UPF or
so here's kind of how, my wife and I started in the IWPA because we pulled
yeah,
American Bulldogs at that, in the late 90s. And at that time, we couldn't pull in ADBA, because we weren't allowed. You had to be an American Pit Bull Terrier. That was it. It was breed specific. That's it. No other breeds. And then they introduced other breeds into their club. I can't tell you what year. I don't know what year it was. Maybe the late 2000s or 2010, somewhere in there. They became all breed as long as you had a purebred dog and you had to register your dog with ADBA with proven lineage and paperwork and all that stuff. So, like I say, we started in IWPA, and then a friend of mine in Ohio, Jerry Lees, he pulled American Bulldogs too. This is like maybe 2003. And we wanted to be able to pull in the summertime too, or springtime and summer. IWPA was a wintertime sport, which started in September and ended in late April, 1st of May. So we started the APA then in like 2003. I put the first national on here in Kansas, and we never even started the club till like May of that year. I think we had like 45 dogs at nationals or something, and probably 40 of those were, big dogs, because most of us were pulling American Bulldogs, and some of the bigger pits were pulling. And it just kind of took off from there. But like anything, there was kind of some issues, and we all kind of split up after 3 years. And I actually started a UPF club in 2006. It's the one that ended up going to Europe there for a long time. And then my wife and I actually went back to the APA for, from probably 2006 to 2013. And then that's when we started the new UPF that we're all pulling with right now. So,
Okay. And how different was the rule set and the idea between APA and IWPA in the beginning?
well, there's a lot of difference between the rules, especially like with qualifying
Yeah.
for nationals. So we just went straight. You had to you qualified, but going to 5 polls. WPA was different because the whole United States was split up in regions. So you could have like a 4-state region, and you had to place in the top 3 in your region in a class to be eligible to go to nationals. So if you had a 4th place dog throughout the year points wise, then you couldn't even go to nationals, even if you pulled 20 times. And what Jerry, Lisa, and I came across, especially for Jerry out there in Ohio, is where he was pulling. Um, if he showed up and somebody else was in, say, 3rd place and he was in 4th, they just wouldn't pull their dog, so you couldn't beat them, and it just made it harder for people to qualify dogs. That's one of the reasons we started the APA. Actually, that's probably the biggest difference between the rules, was just the way you could qualify. The classes were way different because IWPA is a 20-pound weight class, like 20 to 40, 40 to 60, so it's just got bigger jumps between the classes.
So, oh, you're breaking up a little bit. You still there?
There we are.
There we are. Nice.
Yeah, it went off and I lost you somehow, but
Yeah.
what I was saying was, like, yeah, the IWPA is 20-pound weight classes, to where the APA and ADBA and UPF, we are all 10-pound weight difference. And the APA, ADBA, and UPF were all percentage classes. So you win by percent. And then IWPA is a most weight pulled club. So if you're a 40-pound dog pulling against a 60-pound dog, you're going for most weight pulled to win the class. And that's pretty hard to do.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah. Nice. And when it comes to qualifying for nationals, this is I started a debate here a couple of years ago, changed the system we have in this organization, that EWPA here over in Europe, but or Northern Europe. Today we have a system where, as long as you do 3 polls over a certain percentage, for lightweight dogs and heavyweight dogs, it's 2 different percentages that you need to do 3 times, then you are qualified for not nationals, but it's the same rules for nationals. We also have a international championship. But
Sure.
what kind of qualifies system do you prefer for the nationals?
Well, the only reason I wouldn't like what you just said is because you can. I mean, I guess you guys pull mostly on wheels, right? So wheel carts. Yeah. Well, you can heck just put a lot of air pressure in the tire. The cart rolls easier. Take air pressure out of the tires, it rolls harder. So you can or pull slightly downhill. So to me, percentages really don't mean that much, or even when we're pulling on rail systems, every rail system is totally different. Some tracks may pull 2,000, some of them do pull 2,000, and some of them pull 15,000. So it's just hard to base anything to qualify like that through percentages, to me anyway, because it's just not a fair system. The APA and the UPF have both been um, pulled 5 times throughout the season, weight pull season, and you qualify for nationals automatically. It's just a way for the club to generate cash flow. The only different thing that we've done with the UPF is post COVID, when it was so hard for people to travel and stuff, we let people buy into nationals. So our club fee is like, if you host a show, it's, $20, $10 go, or it's $10 to the club. So your 5 shows, you would actually be donating, say, $50 to the club throughout the year. So now it's like you can just come to nationals, pay $50 to buy in, and you're automatically in nationals. And we just never got rid of that. We still have it today. It could be a lot because 99% of the pulls here are on rails in the APA and UPF. It's just, and ADBA. It's just all rails. The only club that pulls wheels is IWPA. And they're all wheels, they don't do any rails, but, there's not tracks everywhere. We're lucky enough here where we're at. I'm right in the middle of the United States. I can drive, 8 hours in any direction and hit 10 tracks, so it's a little bit easier, plus my own track here at my house. So it's pretty easy for us to get qualified. But, just for the people that are somewhere a long ways from a track, we left the buy-in system there. And I think still every year we have maybe 8 or 10 dogs that buy in every year, just from people. Or if you have a really young dog that never turned old enough to like a month before nationals, it's an easier way for that dog to come to nationals and pull in, say 9, 10 months old.
Yeah. So the buy-in dogs, can you see a difference in how good they are, or is there just no difference?
It all depends on who's training the dog. The top trainers in the country. Now I'm saying to me, there's only about 7 of those people in the whole United States where I consider the best of the best. So all of them people, you know, um, we all feel like at 9, 10 months old, if I'm going to bring a dog to nationals, I feel like I can win with that young dog. And Emmanuel's done it plenty, and so have we. So and there's some other pullers that are really good at it too. So, but not everybody can do that. It just takes a lot of experience and training multiple dogs throughout your career and stuff like that.
Yeah, I kind of find it hard to do 1 or 2 shows a year only, and then buy into the nationals, because it's during the year you see what's happening to your dog, and you can
Yes.
see because they fluctuate during the years as well.
Yes, I mean that's very important. I'm glad you brought that up because it's important for you to go to shows during the year. I don't care how good your dog is; they need to go out and feel the weight and be in a competition. And I just don't feel like you could just sit around all year long and not do anything and just show up to nationals and your dog be in tip-top shape mentally. They need to feel. That's one reason why I always like to do cart work, is because you get to find out any little bitty thing that's wrong with your dog. You're not going to find that out by dragging or by not pulling. You got to go pull the dog to find out what's going to happen. I want to know what my dog's going to do when it's a weight that they can't get. So that's, to
Yeah,
me, that's the ultimate goal, is to find out what's going to happen with my dog when they're pulling a weight they can't do. And believe me, I do that in practice. I already know they're not going to get it, but I want to know what's going to happen when they can't get it. Are they going to stay there, keep their head down and dig? And then after, 10, 15 seconds, we'll just have the cart push. That's ultimately what I want to see. Never quit. Just keep trying no matter what. And then as a good handler, you got to push the cart.
yeah, yeah. It's a lot different between the drag weight and the cart work. You can have a dog that has amazing drag work capacity, and once you put them in front of the cart, it all just falls apart. You can
Yeah.
have a dog that doesn't like drag work at all, but it's
Yeah.
amazing in front of the cart. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you need
I
to.
don't think you can, if you're going to go pull on a track that, say, pulls 10,000 pounds, I don't think you can simulate that start in a drag field. It's just not the same. There's something different about firing out and hitting 10,000 pounds and the cart don't move for 5 or 6 seconds. It's just stuck right there, not moving. And you got to have that dog with with a great mind to just stay there and keep digging and working just to get that to start rolling a little bit. And it's not easy to do, you know, it's a lot of work, and you really got to know what. That's one thing you have to train into the dogs. Is part of that heart is your responsibility as a trainer to train into the dog when they're young.
Yeah. Do you have pointers on how to train in that trait in the dog if they don't have it naturally,
Well,
to just dig
if they
in?
don't, hopefully they got some of that already to start with. But the other part is the leash. You know, I said leash
Yeah.
work. A lot of that is that having the leash there, putting weight on there, and it might just be, you know, this practice session with this 6-month-old dog. I want to see him dig out of the hole for 5 seconds without it not moving, and then I may have my wife push the cart or something to help him get it started or something. It's the most important part of weight pull is the start line. You know, if you can't start it, you can't finish it. So that's the thing that, you know, you really got to work on with the dogs, and you do it with a leash.
Yeah,
I
that.
do.
Yeah, I really like that, and you can see especially on rail tracks that as soon as you get the cart going, they pretty much, not always, because when it's really heavy, it's heavy all the
Yeah.
way. But yeah, but it's way easier to get the cart rolling. But on
Yeah.
a yeah
And I typically, when people ask me if they should, you know, raise their tracks up to make it harder so the dog has to work, and I'm like, no, make your track as easy as possible, because then, I mean, the only difference is you're going to have to load a lot of weight, you physically, to put on the cart. But if you put enough weight on there, it's going to make it hard for the dog the same
yeah
way. And the dog has to learn how to. So if you're pulling like on a 6-inch incline, your young dog's going to go out because they can't finish.
yeah
And typically, a lot of people will be like, well, wow, my dog couldn't get that. So now we're done. But you could probably go back and put 500 more pounds on the cart and they could pull it 3 or 4 feet. That's what the dogs miss. An inexperienced trainer will quit because they don't think their dog can get another round because they're on such an incline. So that's why I typically like to train young dogs on a flat as possible track so we can pull as much possible weight out of the hole.
yeah. Yeah, I can resonate with that actually, because the
Yes.
start that's the most important part.
It's
Is the
it's everything. Yeah,
yeah
it's 90% of it, or maybe even more than 90% of it,
yeah
but it's a lot. So yeah.
yeah, especially on rails, and when you come we do mostly dirt on wheels, and
Yeah.
then then it could be a little bit different. But the start is still, if you can't get it moving from the start, then well, then it's over. So
Yeah, it's over.
yeah, even
I
even
guess
if,
that's the only difference, you know, like I said, we pulled wheels for from 98 to like 2004, 2005. I could never go back.
no.
And I've done it once, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. We went to a show that was a wheel pull, and I told my wife, I was like, why did we do this? I go, I don't know why I did this, you know, so. And I was anti rail system. I didn't want to go. We had friends that pulled with us that wanted us to come try rails. And I'm like, ah, man, I don't want to go do that because we're, you know, when you just know one thing,
Yeah.
when you just know wheels, that's all you know. So, and then man, it's just so much easier. The cart rolls back in the same spot every time. You don't have to worry about it rolling into the hole. It's the same for every dog every time. So it's not that, oh, the cart moved over 6 inches on this dirt track and now it's in a hole. You as a handler didn't see it. And now it's not just how strong your dog is, it's how well you read that track. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of differences between wheels and rails.
Yeah, for sure. We have especially one track here in Sweden that's really, really, really amazing, a dirt track, and it's a
Uh-huh.
lot of work put into it. There's one in a couple of ones in Norway as well that are really, really good. And those are, it's uh, extremely fine. dirt, not dirt. I'm not sure about. It's like meal, stone meal. That
Yeah.
yeah, so it's almost like concrete
Yeah.
where the cart goes, but it's still all the big pools over here is done on pretty much all this. We have a couple of instances where the records are on dirt, but otherwise everything is on the rail systems.
Yes.
It's a big difference. Yeah. And as you said, it's more. I was anti the rails from the beginning, but the more times go, I like the part that you said that it's more fair to all the dogs because it's
It's more,
always the same. Yeah,
it's the same, and you can have one cart handler push the cart back, and you know, you're pulling on wheels, and gosh, you know, if you want the, well, here in the U.S. with the IWPA, you got a 10-foot wide track, and you want to move the cart over 3 feet. You know, you got 3,000, 4,000 pounds on there. You know, they don't have steering wheels. You know, so it's a lot of work to get it over there. Man, it's just, you know, rails is just, I guess, easier, um, all the way around.
yeah, yeah, and that yeah, it is.
Yes.
I really I like the dirt as well. I like the mix that we have
Yeah.
here, but it's two different type of competitions, and
Yeah.
I think that's what I like about it because we have at least over here we have dogs that are really good on the dirt,
Yeah.
um, and that's not that very that doesn't perform on the rail system, and then you have the vice versa as well. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting and nice to see diversity in that sense.
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Awesome. Back to the organizations a little bit because there are four organizations in the US and at least as I real has uh, got it, it's ADBA and UPF are the big ones, and pretty much
Well,
everybody
I'm not
that
gonna I'm
pulls
not
in
gonna
both.
leave out the APA in that conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, so it would probably be those three clubs, um, you know, and IWPA being a step behind those clubs, for sure. But most of the people that pull ADBA either pull APA or UPF, one of the two. So we're kind of a combination of a lot of the ADBA dogs, like I said, pull both. A lot
Yeah.
of that's from when we all split up in 2013 and went our different directions. You could look back at the APA back in those days, like 2009 to 2013. We'd have 135 dogs at nationals. It was loaded, you know, with great dogs, and like anything, stuff happens and people don't get along, and crap happens at nationals, and unfortunately we all had a split in 2013, and it's never been I don't know, I just haven't looked back. You know, can't control a lot of things. The reason it split really had very little to do with us, but you know, we just decided it was time to move on.
Yeah.
So
So
here we are.
there are no collaborations between the organizations at all, or is there, especially between the
um,
APA and UPF, it's a divide?
no, there's still a divide for some reason. Not on my part, you know. Running the UPF, I don't have any issue with anybody. My wife and I don't have any issue with anybody, but there's still bad blood there for some reason. I don't know why, but I did try to. I don't know. Maybe some of the APA people might listen to this. I don't know, but during COVID, I spoke with one of the reps then to see if means everything was harder to pull. I was like, hey, let's just combine our nationals for this 1 year. APA dogs, you know, they can keep the money that they make off their dogs. We'll keep the money that we make off our dogs. We'll have one nationals, but you know, that was shot down and during the COVID years. So I was like, I did my part, you know. I offered at least, and then so now we just haven't looked back. So we're thriving with what we're doing, and we've kind of introduced some other things that we're going to do, like this year at nationals on the day after, where we're going to do wall climb and treadmill race and lure course, kind of like a top dog thing that the ADBA does. And there seems to be a lot of interest, around going with that. So
Yeah, I
we'll
can
see
imagine.
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's I really hope that at least over here that we can. There are a couple of divides here as well. It's not
Yeah.
different organizations because the sport is too small at the moment, but there are, yeah, there are some divides, and I really hope that we can overbring that because it's not nice for new people that comes into the sport when
No,
it's like that, and
no,
it's
I totally agree. And even here in the U.S., with this sport being around for as long as it is, there's still not, it's not a huge thing. There's not thousands of dogs doing this. You're still a small group of people. Um, and when everybody's split up, you kind of pull with wherever you live. If that area is IWPA, those people pull IWPA or APA or UPF or ADBA, whatever. It's just kind of whoever in your area. If you're new, you kind of just start pulling with them people. So that's just the way that
yeah,
is. And then there's just different levels. I'd say like if you're pulling IWPA, you could be a less experienced puller. A lot of those shows, there's not very competitive dogs. I'm not trying to dog any club, but right now I think that the two toughest clubs to pull in is ADBA and UPF, hands down,
yeah.
from top to bottom. Yeah,
Yeah. So why do you think that the sport doesn't get in traction and be the big sport? Uh,
and grow bigger.
yeah,
Um, I think it's due to the fact that it's not easy.
yeah,
Um, as long as we've pulled, you always go through. I tell people if I took 100 people, this year to train to do weight pull in 3 years, you might have one of those people out of those 100 left. And so many people get into this thinking, oh man, it's going to be easy. I'm going to go and we're going to win and all this stuff. And if it doesn't happen, it's a lot of work to stay and try to figure out what you're doing wrong. Um, so I just don't think people typically stay in the sport that long. Maybe some people 2 to 3 years and that's it. And then they're gone,
yeah,
just because of the work. And like we talked about the training aspect and dragging and cart, it's a big commitment that you have to make to the sport. And if there's lots of things in this world going on, especially if you're raising a family. Um, when we did through ours, we had two kids that when we first started were, grade school kids. So, but they trained dogs right with us, and we never did give up. And the late '90s and early 2000s, we got our butt kicked all the time.
yeah,
And we're pulling 8 hours away, and every time I'm driving home, thinking, "What the hell am I doing wrong?" So some people, when that happens, they're done. They just quit. And then the really good ones are like they try to figure out what they're doing wrong and then try to get better. Those
yeah,
are the people that stick around forever. But like I said, I can't think of that many people in the U.S. that have pulled as long as Melinda and I have for 27 years now. There's not that many.
No, no, it can't be. It feels like it's kind of unique to. We have
Yeah.
one guy over here he started pretty much around the same time as you, and
Yeah.
he still pulls, not as much anymore, and he got big dogs. It started with American Bulldog actually, but now he has Boer Balls, South
Oh, yeah.
African Mastiffs. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's the heavy guy. So, but he's been around, yeah, pretty much the same time as you, but
Well,
that's
yeah. And,
quite
and
unique.
you start thinking, gosh, when I'm gone out of this world, I'm going to be known as, a weight pull guy. That's going to be
Yeah,
what people know you for. So, yeah, those are those people that pulled dogs for 30, 40 years or whatever, if we can live that long, but, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
yeah, it is great. I'm just looking at my questions a little bit. I think we've gone through pretty much the big part of it. But looking ahead, how do you think the sport and especially for you guys in 5 or 10 years from now, you still pull
Oh
and
man, 10 years is a long time out. We're close to 60 years old now. And that's really one of the reasons we're kind of transitioning to smaller dogs and stuff. And, um, but I can't ever see myself quitting, I guess. Not yet, anyway. So as far as the sport goes, it's a lot of that you can't control. You can't control, how many people get into the sport and stay with it. I don't think that's ever going to change.
no.
Um, it just it's just not going to change. And to me, it's not that the sport's not that much different now than what it was in 2000. It just doesn't seem any different to me. I've seen just hundreds of people come and go. Even back then, people were in it for a couple of years and then gone. So, and it's still the same way today. Only difference, I guess, for us is you just have a different group of friends you hang out with when you pull. Because some of them, are here and you think they're gonna, oh man, this group of friends that we got, they're gonna pull forever, and 4 years later, it's like, God, now we're done, so they're gone, and some of it's because they got families, young families, and some of it's because they couldn't win, um, and some of it is just a lot of work, just not
Yeah.
easy. You just don't go get a puppy and have a great dog. It's a lot of work for that first year to train. If you can get to 1 year and have a great dog, then it's pretty much not that hard after that. But if you're consistently training puppies, say like what we are, it's a lot of work all the time. And I have to give my wife a lot of credit. Um, she does a lot of the drag work that I hate doing. So she does probably 90% of that. Um, So yeah, she gets a lot of credit for that, and I do the track training, but she does all that early drag work
Yeah.
training. So we're a
Yeah.
team. I guess that's one of the biggest differences. Also, is you don't find too many husband wife teams that have done this for this long. It could just be the man of the house or whatever, and maybe the wife didn't really like it that well, and that's why they didn't stick in the sport. But with both of us being 100% involved in the sport, it makes it that much easier. I don't have to ask to go to a weight
No.
pull. She's usually making me go sometimes.
Yeah.
She likes it just as much as I do, if not more. And I think typically she likes the training aspect, the drag weight aspect of this sport the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she loves doing the mill. Like I said, we got our first mill last fall, our
Yeah.
first couple mills, and she's really into that stuff and enjoys it. And we each have our own little thing. She does a lot of the early drag, and I do a lot of the track training.
Yeah. A good team is unbeatable. That's
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
It's Emmanuel, sometimes he'll call me at midnight and I'm like, what do you, and he's like 2 hours difference between me or it might be like 10 o'clock here, it's midnight there. And I'd be like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm going out dragging my dogs. I'm like, man, you're crazy. I go, I'm going to bed. I got to go to work. And he'll be out there late at night, training his dog. So
Yeah.
he's a super good guy that I've only really known, for probably 3 or 4 years. We've known each other, or we were, but not to the extent that we are now. Now we talk weekly, 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's nice. And yeah, you need to find people with the same kind of mindset as well. Because as you said, they don't grow on trees. It's yeah.
No. There's, like I said, there's less than 10 great trainers in the United States. And I'm not going to list any names because I don't want to leave
Yeah.
nobody out. But
Of course.
Emmanuel is one of those, and he's a good friend. And it's funny when we talk about how we trained, how similar we train, without really even, before we even knew how each other trained. Once we started talking about it, I was like, well, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like we do a lot of the same things to train a dog. And that's, it's kind of pretty cool to look at.
Yeah,
It's only so many ways you can do this. It's not like there's 50 different ways to train a dog. There's not. There's only a few ways to do it. So, or
yeah,
do it Right.
Yeah, exactly. And to do it consistently, and then you learn how to, at least the way that suits you as well. As you said, you don't really care for the drag work, and then of course cart work is more suitable for you, and then you're gonna
Yes.
excel at that as at the same
I,
time.
I
Yeah,
enjoy it a lot more doing the cart, especially with young dogs, because you can just see so much more progression in the dog and see where you're at compared to like going out and dragging, which if they're already good at dragging, it's going to look the same way every single time. Um, and cart work, it's just different, especially with the young 5 to 7 month old dog. You see something different each time, or you're hoping you're going to see something different each time. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just realized that I forgot to ask how long do you pull your dogs into what age?
Well, our American bulldogs. Now I can't say with my pits because they're not old
Yeah,
enough yet to get to that age. But most of our ABs, 7, 8 years old.
yeah,
And that's a long career, for big dogs. A lot of it is, you kind of just base it off the dog and what they're looking like when they start getting older. You may 6, 7 years old train a little bit less, to be a little bit easier on the dog, or you don't push them near as hard all the time. But I've had some great American bulldogs at 7, 8 years old also. But that's typically where we'd quit with those dogs, and I can't really say on these pits. I don't know. I'm not that point yet.
no.
So
Is there a time in those 7, 8 years where you feel they are on their peak?
sure, yeah. I would say even with these little pits, you're in that 2 to 5 year old range. I think when they're at their highest peak. Um, my best little pit right now, his name's Max, and he's 3 years old. He'll be four this December. And I thought last year, his year that he was 2 years old, 2.5 years old, he came in. He just got that extra gear in him, where he competed against some of the great dogs at a year old, and he got beat a couple times. And now I just feel like if I competitively train him, he's going to be a very hard dog for anybody to beat. There's a couple dogs that can beat him. So, you have to be ready, and we'll be facing those dogs this fall.
Yeah,
No
nice.
matter what happened last year, we won it against these two other great father son dogs. I don't want to say who they are, but it was Emmanuel, his dog.
Yeah,
But it was also motivation. So I told you earlier, I went to a show that Emmanuel was at, and he beat me, and it gave me the motivation to go home and train harder.
yeah,
And so 3 months later, or 2 months later, we had nationals, and the roles reversed. But hell, I mean, it can change this year. Just because you win one year, you hit the top of the weight pool game one year with one dog. It's now the goal is to try to stay there, and that's probably the hardest part to do.
yeah,
Anybody can get up there with a dog, but man, then everybody's gunning for you, or the same dog that you beat the year before. They're going to come back, and they want to beat you, so they're not going anywhere.
no.
Um,
And it's so small difference between first and second place. Even if it could look a lot in weight, but the difference between getting the pull and not getting it is so slim. Yeah,
So it's very, very slim. And last year it was between, let's say, I'll just use Max, between him and a dog named Vader, who was the dog. To me, it was the best dog in the United States at that weight, for a couple years. So the difference, it was really tough pull. I would have to say it just came down to the start line. My dog just had a little bit more out of the hole than his did, and that was the difference in the poll, and that was it. So, but like I said, that can change this year.
yeah,
Roles can be reversed.
yeah. There's so many small details that you can't control. That also on the day, it's some small smell in there that makes them dig a little bit harder, but the
And
same, it, it could be another smell that make them, yeah, lose their
yeah,
concentration. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I've had some of my best dogs, where it's like, oh man, ain't nobody gonna beat us today. I can just tell by how the first pull or two goes or how they're just acting. It's like, oh yeah, it's on today, and other times, it's a struggle to get that 100% out of the dog. You can still get to it, and maybe nobody can even come close to beating you still, but it's still not, you're never going to be 100% every single time.
No.
Um, so it's just like any professional athlete. They have off days too, with basketball or whatever sport, you're not great every single night. And I think it's the same way with dogs, but if they're trained correctly, uh, most times you're going to be right there at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can pick them into the most important competitions like nationals for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can go to other shows, and you don't need to be always be prime condition every time, but you still
No.
train to
And so,
compete. Yeah.
and sometimes a show you're going to go to, who's going to be there, and it may not be as hard, which is what happened last year. I'll say with when Emmanuel beat me, he never decided to go to the show till like 2 weeks before it was coming up. It was like a 30-hour drive for him. I never thought he would go. And then, because I told my wife, I called her and it's like, yeah, Emmanuel just called me. He's going to go to that show. And I'm like, damn it, I didn't want to train my dogs. Now I'm going to have to train, because I wasn't planning on him being there. But, and there's other pulls, there's other trainers just like Emmanuel, John and Jesse Maynard, Jessica Joyce and her husband. They haven't pulled a lot the last couple of years, but they all have great dogs. Nicole's, who's the queen of all these little dogs, her and there's even some young up and coming people that are going to be great trainers. It just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't beat experience. That's for sure.
No,
It's
yeah, no, and I'll say like Nicole, she's probably she's pulled as long or maybe even a little bit longer than what we have. Maybe not as much as like what we pull. Sorry, I got mosquitoes flying around me out here,
no
but
worries.
yeah, she doesn't pull as much throughout the years as we do, but she's pulled for a very long time. All of these little dogs kind of go back to all her stuff. And she's a great lady, real just low keyed, and it causes no problems whatsoever. But she's put some amazing breedings together over the years, and she's a heck of a little trainer herself. So
Yeah. Do, is there um yeah, can you see a link between the great trainers and that they also breed dogs, or is there?
yeah, I would say probably all of the great trainers are breeding dogs or have bred their own dogs. I don't think it's a sport to where you can count on being in it as long as what we have and not ever bred your own dog. Um, I think that's an important part of it. It's just a younger person's game to me. I just, and after you've bred for as long as what we have since 1995, we're just not into it as much anymore. Now it's like, Emmanuel came here and bred his female Tokyo to my male Max, and I got a puppy back, and it's like, man, that was simple. I didn't have to do nothing. I
Yeah.
got a nice, well-bred puppy when it was, 8 weeks old, and man, that was easy. So let him do all the work, and I get a pup out of it. So yeah.
Yeah,
But I think
that's the way to do
all
it.
the great
Yeah.
trainers are all breeders also.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because you get to know the dogs you have
Yeah.
on a whole other level when you breed them as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's just
of
a
course.
way different game, and you're just way more involved into it. You got more into your program, and to get a great weight pull dog, you want to do a great breeding. So, and you know where the dogs are coming from, especially if you've created this line over 20 years. You know exactly what you're going to get out of that breeding. that you put together. So that's one of the easier parts of it, I guess. Especially, I can't say none for the pits because we haven't been involved in it that long. But for my American Bulldogs, yeah, it got to the point to where I just picked the prettiest puppy. Basically, is what I did. When we had ABs, and because I just knew I could train, whatever I wanted, I could just train them. So
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit, so I think
oh, sorry.
we are getting, well, yeah, no problem. It's probably the mosquitoes. No.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
really bad,
You have
just
a lot of
buzzing all
mosquitoes
around.
over there?
Right now we do, yeah. As you know, it's been raining a ton here, so that's usually when it's pretty bad here in the summertime, and it's hot, super hot. But I guess I
Yeah.
should have got mosquito spray out tonight, but I wanted to do it outside here on my deck, so because it's super nice out tonight. But and then you wouldn't hear my dogs barking in the house. Still nothing.
Yeah, we have
Oh,
a connection
sorry.
issue, I think. Awesome. Yeah, I'm not really sure where we was. I think we we're getting close to the end anyway.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, is there anything you want to put out there, and especially for the Nordic weight pullers?
For the inexperienced wave pullers, is that what you're talking about?
No, for
Or
yeah,
or
for the
for
inexperience as well, but for the Scandinavian weight pullers, maybe I
oh
should say,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Get more rail systems, I guess. I don't
yeah.
know. No, it's just it's hard to tell people not to get frustrated in this sport. You just got to hang in there and keep trying, and don't give up. That's the biggest thing, and try to have as much fun as possible. Um, and I'm not one that I never say I just pull for fun because I want to win, and that's my goal is to win national titles. Not so much paper titles, I want to win national titles, head to head titles. And to do that, I got to be pretty consistent and not be afraid of failure, and you just got to work hard. It's like anything, you got to work hard at it.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing, yeah. And ask for advice, but that's not always the easiest thing to do either. So many people give. I mean, I've listened to people give advice, and I'm like, man, that's just not right. To me, it's not right anyway, and it's just sometimes it's not the greatest advice that you're getting, especially on some message boards.
Yeah.
People ask questions and people give advice. You're like, that's just not right. So
No,
and
the
like I
better.
say, I'd say most of the great trainers probably all train the same or around about the same way. So try to reach out to somebody that maybe knows a little bit more than you and pick their brain apart. Maybe take the things that you want from this person and the things that you want from that one, and come up with your own plan after that. But yeah. And the other thing is starting with a good bloodline or a good breed, or not starting with let's go to the pound and get a dog and we're going to have a weight pull dog, because it just don't quite work like that. So the better the bloodline you're working with, the easier it's going to be for you. Are you losing me?
I'm
Hello?
losing you again.
Okay. Well, maybe we
Yeah.
better
So
wrap
now,
this up then.
yeah, yeah. Let's do that. But
Yes, sir.
yeah, awesome. I'm very very grateful, Brian, for you taking your
Thank you.
time
I
to
appreciate it.
speak to me.
I enjoyed speaking with you. So,
It's been
yep.
really really nice, and good luck at your next show. That was nationals, right?
Yeah, it'll be nationals for this fall. That's what we're going to be getting
Yeah.
ready for. Yes, sir.
So
So
good luck
hopefully
for that.
everything over there keeps, expanding and getting better all the time. So, and I know it has. It's changed a lot over the years, over the last 20 years or so. It's
I'm losing you again.
hello.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now,
Well,
yeah.
maybe we better wrap this up then.
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah,
Yes, sir.
awesome. I'm very very grateful, Brian, for you taking your time to speak to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed speaking with
It's
you.
been
So,
really really nice,
yeah.
and good luck at your next show. That was nationals, right?
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
nationals for this fall. That's what we're going to be getting ready
So
for.
good
Yes,
luck
sir.
for that.
So hopefully everything over there keeps, expanding and getting better all the time. So, and I know it has. It's changed a lot over the years, over the last 20 years or so. It's
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah,
oh, okay.
awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye.